Yes. Tana, wait. What? No guarantees. What do you want? What do you want to say about your name? Tana. Remember this.
We should so be inspired. We should all, in the right time and at the right pace, we should all be zochet to start and finish many Masechtas. We'd like to thank the sponsors for tonight, Meir and Shana Cohen. In memory of Likel Chana Baskayim, Kobe's grandmother. He spoke so beautifully about her, and to watch Kobe in the base medrash, is a tremendous. I'm sure that's a tremendous, of course, in the best Aliyas Teshama for her. It's hard to believe that it's a year since Shmuel Menachem ben Rav Tuvia Yaakov passed away. Tani Pollock's father. Tani was here 2010, 2012. I remember staying at the Pollock's home when Tani's father was still alive. When we were recruiting in Houston, somebody who was dedicated to the Jewish community, a mashkiach, a huge sports fan, somebody who excelled at Achlas Zarkim. Our words tonight should be for his Aliyas Teshama. We thank very much Tani, an alumnus of the yeshiva. First of all, it's always great to be in touch with Tani. I guess it's been over a decade now that he's connected to us in the yeshiva. We should also all be zochet to be able to claim that 10 years from now. I was looking during Shmuel Siyum when I was like half thinking about final preparations before Sicha to look around the base medrash, and Chazal have an idea that tzaddikim, as great and as wonderful as they are on their own, the tremendous madrega that they reach on their own, that is significant, and it pays to note that, but they don't stand on their own platform. Very often, the great tzaddikim stand on the shoulders of those that they are in service of. So let's say the rabbi of a community, his level is standing in part, maybe in big part, on the shoulders of the people of the community. So I was looking out at, not that I'm the rabbi of this community, nor am I a tzaddik, but I'm fired up for tonight. If that gives you any indication about where we're headed, I am fired up tonight, inspired by looking around and seeing where some of you are holding, and what kind of week it's been. I have a to-do list of things that I need to accomplish. I accomplished very little on my to-do list this week, not because I was lazy, but just because there were so many tremendous things happening here, so many great conversations that I had with so many of you, to be in the base medrash late at night and during the break, and to see people learning with Kol Chavrusas, the guys who don't understand yet what davening is, but still haven't given up the fight, and said it's clearly something important in our religion, and I'm going to continue to work to understand. I'm not going to press cruise control just because we're heading into February and so many months in the yeshiva. But guys who are continuing to push, what else can I accomplish? I was eavesdropping on a conversation. There are still some that learn with the Shana Chavrusas, tremendously inspiring for those who have made it this far. I was eavesdropping on a conversation that was going on right in front of me tonight, just to note that the level of maturity of one of your peers in the discussion of that they were having about whatever they were discussing. Somebody who knows that I don't always, or maybe even most often, don't agree with his line of thinking, but to be able to say that tonight, even though he thinks he was arguing the less popular line, I actually kind of agreed with what he was talking about. It was thoughtful, it was mature, it was considerate. To look out at the guys that I woke up this morning, that didn't kind of roll out of bed at a leisurely pace, but when I woke them up and it was late for chakras, but guys who are like, late for chakras, I gotta get moving. Guys who haven't excelled at morning shear and for the whole year, but this week, guys who haven't missed guys who are learning during independent study to try to finish the Masechta. There are so many to watch so many people to watch them daven in the it's great to have them in the front of these measures being role models. There's so many inspiring things that were happening here that it allows me to stand here at the end of the week to close such a tremendous week, hopeful that next week we can even see more bracha. We can see so many more of us being inspired by our friends and saying, like, oh, okay, let me continue to push, to do more, to be greater, to find out, discover more about myself, to discover more about Avodas Hashem. It's an honor to be a part of your community this week. Emmanuel Moreno was born on June 17th, 1971 in France, 1971. So that means that a year old after the Yom Kippur War broke out in 1972, his parents, kind of like Yisro, Vayishma Yisro. The greatness of Yisro was everybody knew, everybody heard about Yetzias Mitzrayim, and everybody heard about Kriyas Yamsuf. But the greatness of Yisro was Vayishma Yisro, Mashmu Hashama Uba, that he did something about it. He looked at the world and he's like, whoa, something crazy is going on here. Kriyas Yamsuf, that's mind blowing. Let me try to investigate. Let me see what this is all about. And he uba, and then he came. He wanted to be a part of what all those miracles were. So it was Yom Kippur War. They were inspired, and they made Aliyah, Sylvia, and Shlomo Moreno. Emmanuel went to the Shlomo Hartman Institute for Elementary School, the Paul Himmelfarb High School, and he went to Bechina in Eli. He was then Zochet to join Sayeret Matkal. For those who don't know, that's one of the elitist of the elite units in the Israeli army. He served in Sayeret Matkal for 16 years, making it up to the rank of lieutenant colonel. Somebody commented about this guy that if the Israeli army, which at the time, maybe still now, the Israeli army is the best army in the entire world, and Sayeret Matkal is one of the highest ranking units in the best army. So Emmanuel Moreno, that would make him, because he's one of the top soldiers, if not the top soldier in the top unit of the top army. So it would make him, we're talking about the guy who debatably, but they don't say this about me for sure, who debatably was the strongest soldier on the planet. Eventually, we found out that he was involved in the apprehension of Mustafa Durrani in Lebanon in 1994. He was involved in the freeing of Eliyahu Burel in 2003. There are many other missions that are far beyond anything we can comprehend, and he was the soldier that was tapped to be able to execute the mission. He was ultimately killed in the Second Lebanon War, August 18th, 2006. They were ambushed outside of Baalbek on their way back from whatever mission they were doing. To this day, it was 2006. To this day, they still don't publish pictures of Emmanuel Moreno because the missions that he was on were so deep and so undercover that should they publish a picture of him, so it would sell out all the others that were around him that are still working in covert missions. That's the kind of person we're talking about. So one time he was in a helicopter with whoever, wherever his closest confidants were in his unit. And I guess what other conversations do you have when you're in a helicopter on your way to a mission? He says to the other guys, he says, what if we were hit by an anti-tank rocket right now? And we had 15 seconds, helicopters going down. We have 15 seconds to live. What do you think about? So the guys who were there, they were not religious. They're kind of looking at each other, like rolling their eyes, like, oh, here goes the religious guy again with one of these conversations. Deep thought. All right, we'll play along. What do you think about? You have 15 seconds before you hit the ground. I hope it's not going to hurt too badly. I hope that I don't hear the splat when we I don't know. So he says, Manuel Moreno says, that's so sad. They said, what would you think about 15 seconds left? He said, I have 15 seconds left. I would scream at the top of my lungs. I would pledge allegiance to the creator of the world. Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. Because this is not a story, he said. This is not a story about death. This is a story about life. That if somebody has 15 seconds, so what do you do with your 15 seconds? Good. There is no anti-rocket. There's no helicopter, whatever. We have 15 seconds right in front of us right now. What would we do with the next 15 seconds? So if I have a purpose to life, if I'm living for Kiddush Hashem, if I'm living because I know that every moment is an opportunity for me to bring God into this world, so then I got what to do even when the helicopter is going down. But if I have no purpose, if I spend my whole life playing video games on my phone and binge watching a Netflix, which could be enjoyable, not taking that away from anybody, but ultimately, is that a purpose for life? Is that 15 seconds left, and I'm going to grab my phone and be like, oh, I have one episode left, and How I Met Your Mother. I got 15 seconds. I got to watch it on like triple speed so I can get that in before I splat on the ground. Nobody's saying that. Everybody knows, that it's cute when I need downtime. It's enjoyable to watch when I'm in the bathroom, but it's not. That's not life. I'm not going down on the banner of I watched every episode of Orange is the New Black or whatever, whatever it is that, or Mean Girls or whatever it is that you guys are watching these days. That's not what my life is. That's just like something that I do. Maybe do too much, but it's not my identity. It's not what I'm about. I'm not running to hop that in 15 seconds. It's not a story about death. It's a story about life. The Mishnah Pirkei Avos says, wasn't Pax of Pirkei Avos. You guys said Sephardic might even have Pirkei Avos. Wait, let's see if the Sephardic has it.
That's a smart.
Well, this is Sephardic French. I don't know what this says. Oh, we'll look up both. Well, this is a good color. Yeah, for those who are watching on the Zoom, we got we should always quote. Shmuel just learned Masechta Megillah. Rabbi Chanina says you have to quote things b'shem umro. So I don't know why I don't have. Get b'shem umro. Well, this is very colorful. We need sunglasses for this Pirkei Avos. I'm going to give Sicha about this Pirkei Avos one day. Sorry.
You still said it.
No, it's here somewhere. There. Oh, this is why there's nobody to quote. Maybe I'm not as big of a rush as I thought. Okay, maybe it's very sure Ben Levi because he's the one who quotes from Mishnah Beis. Paragraph, Mishnah Gimel. Does the Koran agree? Paragraph, Mishnah Gimel. Yeah, great. Let's say you learned from your friend. You should have friends like this that we're learning from them. What a beautiful sight in the Beis Medrash. That you don't need a kola member, you don't need a rabbi. You can learn with a fellow Shana Aleph that have some kind of goal. I can see it now. Herman's learning with Klinger. And Herman reads the Mishnah. And Klinger calls him Rebbe. for the rest of the year. If somebody learns one chapter, one halacha, one pasuk, or dibur echad, or afilu os achas, even one letter we learn from our friends, Sarach Linhog Bo Kavod, we have to give that person kavod, and we call him Rebbe. So I understand, we're in Rav Steve Shir, you're learning, all those wonderful jewels that Rav Steve is teaching, Rav Shimshon, Rav Kenny, Rav Khan, Rav Charnoff, Rav Boaz. We're learning all these pearls. You call them Rebbe. It's I understand that we learn a whole lot, but why is that? What does that even mean? That if we learn os achas, if you learn one letter from somebody, that all of a sudden now we're calling them Rebbe. What's that? What's that all about? It happens to be that this week's Parsha, that os achas, the entire Parsha is about os achas. One of the most glaring places that it shows up is that when the Torah is talking about the damage done by a pit, by a bore. So the Torah describes two perpetrators of this pit digger. One of them is ki yiftach ish bore. If you open up a pit, you go to the ground in Rosh Hashanah and you just dig a hole. Why? Whatever. A bore. You need to make a pit. So the law is, in order to be chayiv, you have to dig a pit of 10 tefachim. Oh, or there's another guy, ki yichre ish bor, or not the guy who opens up a pit, but a guy who digs a pit. But there's a difference. You look in the Torah. We don't appreciate the value of osakas. We don't look at the Torah seriously enough. We're accustomed that we accept to use words such as basically what's going on in Shir is. Pretty much I can sum up that what's happening is, but then we lose. We lose the precision, we lose the beauty, the complexity of what Torah is all about. If you look at that pasuk, there is an os achas difference between ki yiftach ish bor and ki yichre ish bor. Bor, for the guy who opens it, is spelled bet vav resh. Ki yichre, the guy who digs it, is just bet resh. It sounds, it's missing a vav. Why is that? The Gemara expounds huge halachos about how deep the pit is and what the circumstances are, based on os achas. One letter makes all the difference. Does the pit have to be 10 tefachim? What if you only did 4 tefachim? Which guy are we talking about? It makes a difference. The Torah is precise. Os achas. One letter changes everything. If you teach your friend, we learn from somebody, os achas, that could change our lives. That could change your life. It could change my life. It could change all our lives. It changed the way that the halacha is defined. The Eila Mishpatim, Asher Tasim Lefnehem. What's the vav? The Eila. It should say Eila Mishpatim. The following things in the parsha. These are the laws. Why the Eila Mishpatim? Who did that? Blew off, of course. Yeah. Because I was talking about inspirational. Yeah.
Rashi explains that it's because talking about that we just saw the Yetzer of Hebrew, so we understand that there are equal importance to the Yetzer of Hebrew.
So Rashi says in the very first pasuk, Halavai. If you don't know this Rashi, it's not confessional. Don't raise your hand and say I don't know this Rashi. But if you don't know this Rashi, so maybe if we're looking out at the next week, some people might be challenged by next week's Parshat Truma. We're afraid of the Mishkan. We're afraid in the shift that's going on now in the Torah. We're leaving the stories, and now we're heading into the Yasuli Mikdash V'Shachanti B'Socha. Don't be afraid of it. Embrace it. There are awesome things that are happening within the Mishkan and the clothing and the Kelim. Says Blumoff. The Eila, Rashi says, Eila excludes. The Eila includes. Vav, os akas. Changes everything. The same way that there's a difference given at our Sinai, so too, what's going to be in this parsha, even though it might seem like common sense, or Ben Adam L'Chavero, so too that's also in this parsha. Os achas l'vav makes all the difference. We understand this better than any generation before us. I don't even know how in the 1700s, 1600s, I don't even know how they understood how this was even possible. But we understand it better than anybody else. A number of years ago, like a lot of years ago, we were getting ready for the Poland trip. And I had to send a picture of everybody's passport to the travel agent. So I took down the guy's name, David Said, a Jew living in the West Bank. And I sent him davidsaid@gmail.com. I sent him an attachment, 50 passports of people of Leva Torah. He calls me up later in the day. I really need the passports. The airline's killing me. The deadline's getting close. I'm like, dude, check your internet. I sent it to you like 4 hours ago. That's not, I'm not like that. I send it right away. He's like, well, I didn't get it yet. I'm like, well, refresh. He's like, he refreshes, nothing happens. Again, nothing happens. Nothing. Calls me an hour later, still no passports. At some point, one of us, either he or I, says, well, let's just double check. Let's double check the email address. So he starts reading, DAVID, all good. Dot, SA, whatever. Dot. What do you mean dot? So yeah, what do you mean? That's it. It's email address. That's what I sent you. I'm like, yo, you never said nothing about a dot. He's like, well, this is the email address. Well, we know. It's not shocking. This story is not surprising to anybody who's sitting here. We know that Osakas, that dot, it makes all the difference. Of course, he didn't get the passports, right? Because that's not his email address. But it's just a dot. Who cares? No, that dot is. So who did? So here we have 50. This is okay. Now you have to. So it might not be easy for you to get this, but we're talking about the times after 2000, about September 11th. This is like post. This is right after. Okay, so it's a different time than we're living in now. I'm like, wow, David Said. It could be a Jewish guy. Could also very easily be an Arab kind of guy. So I write an email to this whatever David Said. Meanwhile, of course, we sent with the dot. We ended up going to Poland. I'm sure that was an amazing trip, which every year that was. It was great. Anyway, I read an email to this other David Said, and I said, listen, I accidentally sent you an email with very I don't know what I wrote, top secret. I don't know, I had some kind of fancy word. Very sensitive information that was in the email. I just want to let you know that I already called the FBI to tell them that there are American passports that are floating around in somebody's hands that shouldn't have them. So just a heads up that if you're thinking of doing criminal activity with identity theft with these passports, so just know that the FBI is right at your doorstep because all these passports are already flagged, like some kind of like serious language. So the guy writes back, dear whatever. I'm not sure why you're getting so uppity. Why couldn't you just say, dear sir, please disregard the email that I sent you? Why are we like all FBI? Okay, anyway, a few years later, the FBI calls me. Nah, anyway, so but that is what ended up. The dot makes all the difference. If you're putting in a phone number, if you're sending a WhatsApp, if you're sending an email, in our world, in the world that we're living in, the details matter. The specifics matter. It's not just the dot. It's not just an Osakas. That changes the whole world. What that ends up being. And it's not just letters. It's not just email addresses. But it's also the moments of our lives. The moments make a difference. It's a story about life. It's not a story about death. It's a story about what are we doing with the opportunities that are in front of us. I went for an endoscopy. That's what I have to do ever since my father died. Every 5 years, I have to go to the doctor and get a scope of my colon to make sure there's no cancer. So the last time that I went, last year, so I woke up in the middle. And I woke up and I was staring at the screen. The camera was in my body. I was staring at a screen of my intestines. What are they looking for? Osachas. The difference between whether we're going to live or die is whether, we don't think about this. I mean, I don't think about it. Maybe Isaac thinks about it. I don't think about it. But within our body, if there would have been an osachas, the tiniest of tiny polyp, then that changes. That changes the rest of my life. It changes whether we walk out feeling all good and carefree and satisfied that we made it through another scope, or whether the next weeks are going to be involved with, God forbid, lo aleinu, with radiation and and whatever, and then hospital trips. Same things with all the moments that we have. What time am I going to get up? Never. It's only 8:30. It's only 8:30. There are people who learn with you in the Beis Medrash that 8:30, but by 8:30, they've already been awake. Sometimes for more hours than some of us then proceed to stay awake for the rest of the day. Okay, 8:30 is not the latest. But do you know what we could do? I'm not talking about just rabbis, by the way. There are a number of guys, Shana Aleph, that get up. Because life has a value. Because every minute is an osachas. I could change something, certainly about myself, but I could change something about the world. Even if I'm not going to daven and learn. But I could do infinite chesed. For all of us who, throughout the years of high school and elementary school, never got up 8 something. We got up 7 something and maybe 6 something. So now all of a sudden we're flushing hours of opportunity down the toilet because says Rav Simcha Barim of Shiska. Anybody wants to photocopy this? This is a good thing to have, to carry around. Committing a transgression is not the greatest crime. After all, temptation is a powerful force. The greatest crime is that we can turn our life around at every moment, and we don't do so. We grew up in a society where davening is supposed to look like something. We expect that morning cheer looks like something. If it looks repetitive and like the same thing that I did yesterday, then we are doing something wrong. Shachris should never look like it did yesterday. Gemara should never look like it did yesterday. Because the Yos Achas that we got from Herman, the Yos Achas that we got, that we learned, that he taught us, that he enriched us, that he enhanced our life with, that Yos Achas, that was great for yesterday. But today I'm going to learn something new. I'm not staying at the same level. Kol hakavod to all those who have moved up levels in shir. Even more so for those who struggled, for those who was hard, but who didn't accept mediocrity from themselves. And said, there's more that I want to do, something new that I want to explore. So I have Gemara, I'm going to go on to Halacha, Rishon, Achronim. I don't need to run out of the base medrash at 10 o'clock after Mariv. Halavai that we even made it there. The opportunity that exists for us to learn an independent study. And during the hour, if you're not learning with the Shana Bet Paruza, so what? It's not 3 hour, or you know, it's whatever we make of it. But there's an hour that I could expand. I could reach heights. I could discover things I never knew before. For anybody who has not been in the base measures from 8:45 to 9:45, I challenge you. And tell me if I'm wrong. I challenge you to think back to a year of 5 or 6 months that we've had so far, of 8:45 to 9:45. And what do we have to show for that? What accomplishment have we done that we're so proud of, that it was worth it for me to not be here doing something? You don't want to do Megillah? Mazel tov. Don't do me. Do Megillah. Be like Shmuel. Finish the Masechta. That's awesome. That's not your thing. Great. That's not your thing. That's not the only thing. But we have to do something. That's an hour of Osachas every single night, times 5 days a week, times 6 months. You know, don't look at Zach Schwartz and be like, whoa, how did he get there? You know, Jake Teller, whoa. You know, Shai Fish, whoa, how these guys, you know, how are these guys doing that? Don't ask how, you know, Herschel. You know, I can tell, I should do Sicha about what Herschel was at this point. You know, how did he get there? It's not a question. It's Parshat. It's just people who live. And people who say, I'm not sleeping through my life. Some guy just said to me tonight, I decided I'm going to go shun a bet. I was like, okay. I'm not going to discourage. A mentality that every moment is Osachas. What's your Osachas? I don't know what your Osachas is. But if you listen closely to the tick, tick, tick of the clock, every one of those is Osachas. What can I do with myself? Every one of those is an opportunity. You don't want to learn? Mazel tov. Walk around the base medrash and say something nice to every single person who's don't bittul Torah. Okay? But for whoever might look like they need a supportive hand. So walk around the base medrash. Say something nice to everybody. That's an osachas, enrich people's lives. And you have what to show for, which dominates. And it's such a great feeling. Much better than staying in bed. For all that we have to show for ourselves is binge watching. Zach Schwartz said to me tonight, crazy thing happened. I was listening to the Daf Yomi on my phone. And I looked and the battery was really low. It was down to 1%. But then I made it. I got through, and once right when the shear ended, the phone died. It's a firm phone. But 1%, Osachas. Alfred Nobel. Is the father, in some sense, of modern warfare. He discovered dynamite. In 1888, his brother Ludwig died. And the French newspaper wrote an article. The merchant of death is dead. Because when the factory blew up, they didn't know which Nobel was inside. Ludwig was inside. Alfred snuck out for vacation up in the hills. So they wrote an obituary for the wrong brother. Alfred wakes up in the morning and he goes to get the paper, and right there on the front, the front page of the French paper, he was reading his own obituary. And he said to himself, wow, that's what I'm about. That's my life. I need to do something different. And that's where he decided to sponsor the Nobel Prize of Chemistry, the Nobel Prize of Physics, the Nobel Prize of Literature, and the five Nobel Prizes. One of them for people who made the world a better place. Somebody who might not be smart enough to come up with the Nobel Prize in Physics, but to be the Nobel Prize of Peace, the Nobel Prize of people who make the world the way the world should be. They should get a prize too. So that when his real obituary is written, it's not about the merchant of death, but it's about the one who facilitated innovation in our world, about the one who added or contributed, who did positive things. The beginning of the Parsha talks about a slave. Again, this is not confessional, so don't raise your hand. A slave, after 6 years, makes a decision. Does he say, "Ahafti es Adoni es ishti es banai"? I'm into girls. I got a girlfriend here where I'm at. I have some kind of routine. Ahafti es Adoni. I love the slavery. It's a good situation for me. So I'm gonna stay. And he stays then for 49 years until the Yovel. 49 years is. You're there for 6. He had to pay back, whatever. Okay, he got nailed 6 years, he's in jail, fine. 6 years, he's a slave, fine. But then he makes a decision based on money and girls that he wants to stay for another 43 years. Another 43 years, it's a lifetime, 43 years. It's not like I'm going to duck out after 25. 43 years is a lifetime. I'm making a decision about what my life is. So the Torah says, go to the door and pierce his ear by the door. Pierce his ear because the ear that heard that Hashem's the master, and that's who we should be dedicated to. We should pierce that ear because you decided to take on a different master. Why by the door? Because, says the Kliyakar, because the door has a hinge and it's swinging in 2 directions. You can make a choice about where my life is going to be. And we are the only ones who control our fate. I had a wonderful conversation with one of you this week. Somebody who was open. Their heart was open. Not sure exactly what they did with it yet, but I have high hopes about how much godliness we have in our lives. Some people walk around all day, Baruch Hashem, Baruch Hashem. We make fun of them sometimes because it sounds stupid. How you doing? Oh, Baruch Hashem. Where you going today? Baruch Hashem. What did you learn? Baruch Hashem. Baruch Hashem's not an answer. Okay, maybe. But in that 1 second, in that osachas, in that one moment, do we realize that we've now included HaKadosh Baruch Hu in our lives? If we could be in the habit, Baruch Hashem takes less than a second. I don't know who did the music challenge. I don't know how it came out. I'll give you another challenge. I challenge you. I dare you. start talking about Hashem more and see what that does for your connection with Him. Everything that happens. I told the guy, doesn't have to only be good. Our youngest woke up on Tuesday night. Our youngest woke up at 3:30 in the morning. My wife says, your turn. I'm like, again? She's like, yeah, you slept through my turn. I'm like, well, I gotta use that. That's a great line. Anyway, 3:30, the baby's crying. Because I'm blessed with super dad talents. So we got her back to sleep. But when I heard the cry at 3:30, the first words out of my mouth were, Hashem, seriously? Of all nights tonight, 3:30? You could say Hashem, seriously? Or what the heck? Like, come on. We could also say thank you. Wow, awesome. He even knows that sick doesn't mean, corona. Sick can mean like great and awesome. He knows. He speaks lingo. But that 1 second, that osachas, that one moment that we include Hashem, that we make Him real in our lives. So that, I challenge you, I'm telling you, that'll forever change your relationship with Him. Now, if we take two lines and we separate them by 1 degree. So 1 degree here at the core, 1 degree is nothing. 1 degree is so minimal, it's like nothing. But if you continue the lines that are 1 degree differential, then eventually what starts happening is you realize that 1 degree makes a big difference. The Kadosh Baruch Hu should help us realize the value of every word that we say, every action that we do, and every second that we breathe, the breath that Hashem gave us. We should be able to optimize it, maximize it, so that we can make ourselves the greatest people that we could be.